Hi everyone, and welcome at Google Next 22. I'm really pleased to host you for this session focused on enabling cloud-native networks and 5G Edge for telecommunications. Let me introduce myself. My name is Gabriele di Piazza. I'm a Senior Director for Product Management for Telco at Google Cloud, and I'm really pleased to be joined by two key guests, Jeff Gallagher. He's the Program Lead for 5G Cloudification at Bell Canada, and Margaret Rooney-McMillen. She's the Vice President GM for Partners and Hyperscalers and Systems Integrators at AT&T. And so we plan to cover different things, so let me get to the content. I like to go through a different section here. First of all, let's start from how we're helping CSP transform. And secondly, let's look at the 5G cloud-native network evolution, which is a key topic that we are targeting here at Google Cloud. And I'm glad that we have a conversation with Jeff, who's going to explain and take us through what are we doing with Bell Canada and their journey around cloud-native modernization. We switch gears and let's look at 5G not just from a network perspective, but from how 5G enables 5G edge monetization. Then we'll invite Margaret here for a quick chat. She's here in the studio with us, looking at the 5G edge monetization approach from AT&T, and then we can get to closing. So let's get started. We have focused our attention to the telecommunication or communication service provider market here at Google Cloud for over a couple of years now. And we really set on a strategy looking at different pillars around modernizing core systems and workforce and building low-touch, high-value digital experiences. And over time, we actually growing our portfolio around service provider network evolution and monetizing the edge. We're going to cover the last two pillars in this discussion today. So let's look at 5G. Most of you will know enough about 5G by now. And as you can see, this is the traditional three-pillar slides around 5G, where you can see how 5G enables is not just about speed and low latency. If you look at the different tenants here, capacity enhancements with enhanced mobile broadband, or massive connectivity or machine-to-machine type of communications, and of course low latency and ultra reliable low latency communications. These are, I would say, these tenants really enable a wealth of different use cases. And we've been talking about these use cases over the course of the last couple of years. But the key aspect I like to point out is that 5G is much more than connections, low latencies, and enhanced capacity. I think these three aspects are just the tip of the iceberg, as you can see from this slide. But 5G represents a massive transformation in the build-out of network and in delivering a set of services. First of all, we are redefining the network delivery models. We're starting to look at network as a service. We're starting to look at network slicing and also re-architecturing networks in new paradigms. If you look at what's happening around radio access networks or even core networks. But the core aspects which we really like to focus on is how does cloud-native transformation take place? The aspects around deployment, management. It is really a software world. And we are looking at how to manage software in the context of a network. And the, I would say, sometimes unspoken aspect of how do we apply cloud-native principles, not just in technology, but actually in the operational and human aspects in enhancing, upgrading, operating, and the skill sets required in 5G networks. We look at Google portfolio, and we actually have a massive experience in building our, Google Global Network, which is, one of the largest networks out there. And we look at what type of capabilities we can actually drive. And we look at a portfolio from Google core regions all the way to the edge of the networks and even enterprises, if you look at the bottom of the slide. And the first thing that we put in place was really a carrier-grade hybrid network cloud architecture. We needed to do this to support the core network functions, the core network elements, which are transitioning to cloud-native principles today. But the cloud-native infrastructure will be nothing without the ability to actually leverage the data generated by these networks, leverage this data from a planning perspective, from an operational perspective, and how we can actually apply artificial intelligence to this type of network. And of course, I think the unrealized opportunity in this market is how do we leverage cloud-native principles and Kubernetes to actually orchestrate this function and automate these functions. I think all these three capabilities combined basically create the foundation of our portfolio. And if you look at the functions on the top here in the green boxes, this is where Google has decided to partner with the leading vendors in the industry, from core vendors, network core vendors, or radio access network vendors, or the many ISVs or independent software vendors that are basically providing vertical market applications. We talk about this later on in our conversation with Margaret. And of course, the two mega use cases that we're looking at, number one is the service provider network evolution. And the second aspect on the right is how do we monetize this network? How do we monetize this edge? So a couple of comments. What is the journey to get there? We're really starting in the optimization of these network functions, optimizing our Google distributed cloud infrastructure and leveraging the amazing capability we have from a control plane perspective. So basically bringing a satellite of Google Cloud on-premise and enabling the same type of cloud native principles and cloud-native operations that we leverage for our own Google Cloud capabilities. And then evolving truly to a hybrid network. How do we look at network function being distributed across on-premise and Google Cloud regions with full measurement and telemetry, which is happening in the network, and cloud-native automation principles. And ultimately, how do we enable the autonomous network? How do we enable a network that spans from cloud regions to Google POPs distributed all over the world, and of course the operator network? And here we're looking at distributing functions based on the operator preference, but also augmenting those functions with a full telecom data fabric with cloud-native automation and AI controls and placement that would really start to inject intelligence in the way you can actually operate a network with cloud-native principles. A couple of things that I called out. There's a lot of concept in this slide. One thing we needed to do, and this was where we actually launched this last year at Google Next, was the Google Distributed Cloud Edge, a converged platforms that basically leverages the best of Google as a foundation to host both network functions as well as applications or edge applications. And Google is actually providing a full lifecycle platform, bringing in integrated hardware, fleet management, and of course leveraging Anthos as the application platform capability to run those applications. And of course, the automation aspect is key. Automation should not be more complex. This is how we build actually our own Google network. You express an intent, you define what the network should be and its intended state. And you can do this across the infrastructure and the functions on top of this network. And then, of course, through orchestration and automation, the ability to validate this intent and reconcile states in order to drive a control loop in the live networks and continuously monitor, continuously learn, continuously apply artificial intelligence to optimize this. And at the same time, it's very important to intertwine automation with analytics scale. As you can see, different layers, adaptive data management, telecom reference data models, and open APIs. In this way, we can actually expose data coming from the network, both to internal data consumers and external data consumers. In this way, we can actually really drive towards some telco model standardization and maximize repeatability with open APIs. So I would like now to introduce Jeff Gallagher from Bell Canada, because in fact we've been working closely together on all of these concepts: infrastructure, automation, and analytics. So he can take us through their journey in cloud-unified networks. Over to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. Not unlike many of you, Bell is on a journey towards digital transformation. A little over a year ago, across our executive, there was a belief in a conversation that shifting to the cloud could offer a real opportunity. About the same time, we saw a strengthening of the story around 5G and edge compute. We set out at that time to establish a program to explore the readiness and opportunities that would support all of these ideas towards commercial viability. At the outset, we had a set of hypotheses. We believed there was value in a cloud-native transition. We believed that we could produce a shift. Shift being the key word here. A shift in our way our operational processes work, a shift in economics and value, our deployment and deployment models, speed to delivery, how fast we could actually take an idea and deliver it to our customers. And fundamentally, we saw a shift in responsibility for our infrastructure, moving some of that to another place in terms of what that value is, allowing our resources to be able to focus on areas of high value rather than managing day-to-day tasks. Let me tell you what we found. Well, it's anchored in a couple of key pillars: infrastructure, application readiness, and an ISV catalog, integrated tooling systems in terms of how all those pieces connect together, and ultimately a little bit of organizational support required from every business transition around finance, procurement, risk management. Let me just double click for a second. On the infrastructure side, taking advantage of a fully cloud-based container as a service layer, or CaaS layer, well, that exposes some of the value that's inside of the native Kubernetes deployment. And certainly that gives us the ability to take advantage of the native security components, reliability, and just the general management opportunities that exist inside of a Kubernetes-based ecosystem. Shifting into a fully managed version of that, something like Google GKE or Google Cloud Distributed Edge, well, that takes us to another fundamental shift. Really thinking about how telcos and CSPs manage lifecycle, their services and equipment, shifting that responsibility is a pretty magical thing. It allows for the way we changing the way we do capacity planning, changing for the day-to-day operations and the things we do. We no longer have to patch or do support and management of those types of things. And that's a pretty significant shift for us. Secondly, if we think about the application and the ISV ecosystem, now overall, that's probably where we saw the biggest shift in the past 12 months. There's considerable growth in terms of the telco ISV supplier space. Network function vendors, well, they've really made some huge leaps. We're starting to see 5G packet core and full software systems that are fully containerized. They're able to take advantage of that Kubernetes CaaS layer. We're starting to see things like stateless containers. We're seeing shifts in the way things are orchestrated, shifts into declarative configuration. CI/CD, software-based practices, finally making it into a telco environment. The ability to take monitoring, logging, and observability into a fully integrated dashboard, being one single point of glass available for how we manage and operate. Now, those are some pretty big shifts. And that's pretty material in terms of the way we run our business. And I think that's where we're starting to see some of those value expose themselves as we start to move forward. So what's next for Bell? Well, we're going to keep exploring, because we see all of that value that I just talked about. We're seeing that cloud native is real. That transition is actually here. We're starting to see some real material things take advantage of that the cloud native constructs. The benefits, well, they're tangible too, in terms of the way we manage, the economic component, the way we deliver. We're very excited about what the future holds for us. And we're excited for our partnership with Google Cloud as we move forward. Thank you very much, and back to you, Gabriele.
Thank you, Jeff. Actually, very insightful. Let's shift gears right now and look at what does 5G entails in terms of monetization. In fact, in addition to building a 5G cloud native network, we're starting to experience, we've been observing the fact that 5G has a broad appeal across multiple industries and use cases. I think it will be difficult to capture all of them on a single slide. As you can see here, the use cases in industry range from, managing venues, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, energy, mining, industrial in general, or even smart cities and public sector. We actually believe 5G will be essential to bring to market new set of services and infuse the right type of quality and controls in enabling a whole new developer and ISV ecosystem powered by or underpinned by telecom networks. And if we look at the way we've been looking at edge computing, is really being as flexible as possible. How do we adapt edge computing to new digital experiences, spanning a set of use cases and deployment models from directly running in Google Cloud at our edge of our networks in our Google Edge POPs on regional hubs, but then of course partnering with communication service providers, the likes of AT&Ts, and others in placing infrastructure, cloud nodes and application at the CSP edge, deeply connected with their 5G networks. And eventually even bringing infrastructure on-premise at the different enterprise sites. As you can see at the bottom, there's a variety of use cases that can be empowered, many of them powered by artificial intelligence, visual capabilities, which actually allow to capture data and process data directly at the source and basically leverage the capabilities of 5G networks and cloud in the backend to transport this data, apply different capabilities and intelligence to bring new services to market. And with this, I'd like to welcome Margaret Rooney-McMillen. She's a VP at AT&T, and we've been working closely together. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, nice day.
Nice
warm
day.
Yes.
Oh,
All right. So, Margaret, as I thought through this conversation, I always represent this partnership as best of both worlds, right? You have Google Cloud as leader pioneer in cloud computing and many other things as we discussed, and AT&T of course leading the charge in networks and advanced services, right? Especially in the area of edge, we've been working together for quite some time. Actually, we announced this partnership at Google Next last year. So take us through what you see from across your enterprise customers, especially in the space of edge.
No, great. And I echo what you say about our partnership. I think it's been a tremendous collaboration between our two companies, and we're just beginning the opportunities here. From an enterprise customer perspective, we really see the edge as really a playground for innovation between 5G, edge, cloud compute, as well as the applications coming in. And so these enterprise customers more and more are finding opportunities to improve their business and the way that they can make improvements across different applications, different processes that they have. And it's allowing them to really take advantage of how can you move that high speed, low latency capability mirrored with the cloud compute together on the edge to really prove out some important proof points for them to take forward into their businesses.
Yeah, and I can see that's where you see this combination between Google and AT&T come together, not just from a cloud compute perspective, but also, given the architecture that we put in place, very deep convergence and, let's say, integration with our networks as well across the world. And so take us through, what you're currently working on with some of your customers, given that actually you have a very large reach in the United States. And we've been actually working on, different examples, different projects.
Sure, we have together. I would say we're really isolating initially to kind of three big industries on the enterprise side, where we're seeing a lot of opportunity to prove out some business cases around real life issues that they're trying to solve. So that would be kind of in the healthcare space, retail, and in manufacturing. And as you would imagine, on the healthcare side, it's really all about how do you solve for problems around staffing and also making sure patient care is up to speed. So you really need that real-time monitoring capability, video surveillance, and that AI computing capability almost close to real time. So really working through some use cases around that. But one really exciting one that we have working together right now is in the manufacturing space. And so, as you know, we're working with a large North American manufacturer right now, putting together a proof of concept for them in a live environment. So that's really great for both of us and the customer to really prove out the technology. But really, the problem we're trying to solve for them is how do they gain some efficiencies and improvements on the factory floor? And we're doing this through video surveillance. And so we're really trying to figure out how do we help them identify when someone on the floor is not wearing the right protective gear so that they can immediately stop production so that they don't ruin what's going on the production floor and can immediately stop it. Don't worry about contamination going forward.
So looking at worker safety, basically.
Absolutely, right. And it's got so many benefits for this customer, we believe, in the form of not only cost savings, because they're going to be able to hopefully stop something from being contaminated before you have to throw out an entire production batch, and also just the operational efficiencies that they'll gain around it. And as you know, I mean, it's again a great opportunity for us to bring together both of our technologies. So we're bringing together the 5G, the edge, and we're using the Google Cloud Compute, and we're using one of your ISVs to really bring together the full solution for the customer. So it's really actually very exciting to watch this go on.
No, what's very interesting is hearing you talk about the outcomes, not just the technology or the network, but how we are actually, how you are helping, and together how we are helping our customers with specific outcomes, right? Whether it's safety or cost savings or even introducing new services, if you will. Right?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that really excites me the most about this new technology is I really do think it helps us bring new outcomes for those enterprise customers who are really trying to figure out different ways, not only to make cost savings, but also to differentiate their capabilities in the marketplace.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to see this. And I actually, another aspect which we don't talk enough is this is not just about an AT&T and Google partnership, but it's actually bringing together a community of ISVs and application vendors that have the opportunity to actually innovate and bring new applications to market through the combined effort.
Absolutely. And we were talking about that earlier. I think that's really the important kind of secret sauce to this, right? Are the ISV partners who are going to be able to take our hopefully scalable solutions that we produce and be able to make those come alive for the customers in the applications that they're able to develop for each of those verticals.
Yeah, and I think openness becomes a big factor into this. So the ability to deploy in open infrastructure, with open APIs and open lifecycle to basically even trial and test before you go into production.
Right. I think that's going to be the key, and making that more and more available is really the interesting side of this business now, is how much customers are really looking to do that trial and error fast.
Yeah. So what excites you more about the future, given that I think we are just scratching the surface, right?
We're
just starting,
I think we are just scratching the surface, and that really excites me because I do think there is a lot of opportunity for the technology to really take that next step and really improve not only the enterprise's experiences, but also the users at the end of that experience as well, as we continue to collaborate with them and come up with these new technology innovations for them in the future.
Yeah, and we are looking forward to the continued partnership. In fact, in addition to thinking of Google as cloud infrastructure, you can also think of this as an innovation capability, given a lot of research and applied capabilities in artificial intelligence and so forth, so we can actually bring more and more application to the market together.
And I think that's why our alliance is so important, because of that very reason, the collaboration that we have together and the opportunity to continue to innovate. It really makes it an exciting opportunity for us both, I believe.
So Margaret, thank you for having been here with us. It was a pleasure to host you, and looking forward to the partnership and continued improvements and deployments over the course of the years.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And so let's wrap up. We covered a lot of ground in the session today. I'd really like to call out 6 key aspects of Google Cloud for communication service providers. Number one is the intelligence with AI innovation. I think we look at AI first, pretty much in every product, every offering that we do. Secondly, Google has a very long history of open source. We believe this gives freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of deployment. And the third aspect is the scale and reach of our Google Global Network, which actually underpins not just our own global network, but we start to now open this up for topics such as 5G and Edge. And then, of course, the partner ecosystem. Google is an infrastructure provider, and we like to really build the best-of-breed ecosystem out there. Another key aspect for us is sustainability. Sustainability in hybrid and multi-cloud, and how we actually can not just build it for us, but if you work with Google Cloud, how can you help build your network in a more sustainable way? And then last but not least, the ability to actually bring together all of the cross-Google properties and services. So not just Google Cloud, but the wealth of the enterprise and consumer services from Alphabet, from Android to Pixel to Maps to Ads and so forth. And with this, thank you so much for having been with us at Google Next, and I'll see you next year.